But then I could send it for new people if they join midway. Here, give me that notebook, then I'll have to look through these. Okay, since we're not, I'll check this for anyone recording. Since we're not having our regular board meeting, we're just gonna have our orientation for our new members, and we've got Oliver Wall here. And that's your store.
Who does not have a baby.
Right. Not for men, but I don't know if he will be joining us. If you're joining or listening to this virtually, Ryan, congratulations. All right, so we're doing this a little later than normal. Because I know you had come to the July meeting and then Ryan had come to the August one, and so both of y'all got kind of thrown into when we had a lot of
I was upset with myself because I couldn't
he
remember.
wasn't there at the first one, and then you were at the second one, so you haven't met, or you may have met, you just don't know that you've met. Because he comes to a lot of events and stuff. So for today, we'll just go over kind of like what the Main Street program is. And were you involved with any downtown groups in your other jobs or anything like that? Okay.
Adjacent, but not directly.
Yeah, okay. So I know Mast has always been involved with a lot of wherever they go. So these are just copies of the slides.
Okay.
So kind of just going through what the overall Main Street program is. And then also like what the board and everything is and means. And then our subcommittees. So first, so we're a part of like a national and a state program. That's like the National Main Street Program. And so we have to submit information every year to be accredited by the National Main Street Program, basically showing that we're following these best practices. And then also for the North Carolina Main Street Program, that's through the Department of Commerce, through the state and through their Rural Development Program. And so they are kind of our local or statewide folks that we report all of our information to. Both of these entities have all kinds of different resources and stuff available there. So I've got, this is a little bit about what the National Main Street. Okay, so that's like the National Main Street. And so that's where we're kind of a network with all these other communities. Some in North Carolina, it's towns no bigger than 50,000. And then in other states, some bigger cities have their own kind of part of it, but in North Carolina, it's just smaller towns.
Okay, that makes sense. That was gonna be a question, is like, how exclusive is that national program? Is like, how many other versions of it are there? This is
Yeah.
For a certain size city.
Yeah, they've got like an urban Maine program where like in and some of this is bigger cities in North Carolina might be a part of it, but like and like Philadelphia, for example, probably has like several different Main Street programs within the city that are like their own districts and have probably their own staff and all this other kind of stuff for it. So it's kind of, it goes anywhere from big to small. And Hendersonville, like, even though our population is fairly small, we operate more like probably a bigger town, not a big city like Charlotte or Asheville, but more like we're 16,000 population, but we probably operate more like a city of like 50,000 or plus people, just because of the service area that we've got and tourism. And feel free to interrupt at any time. So basically, it all started back in the 70s when the interstates were being built and malls were being built and all the main streets and downtowns were like falling apart. And so then the National Trust for Historic Preservation came along. They really were trying to preserve historic buildings more than anything. And then they were like, well, what do we put in there to prevent them from further falling apart? And so that's how they came up with this Main Street program, where they piloted in several places all throughout, or I think in several states. And North Carolina was one of the earlier states to be a part of it. So when they piloted all of these projects, they found that there's some needs that were important for all of them, and that would be the public-private partnerships, an organization, a dedicated person who's staffed in charge of it, the good design, quality products, and that incremental process. So like, it's not just trying to do all of it all at once, especially getting started on it. Where Hendersonville's been involved in it for a long time, a lot of programs when they first get started, they want to like do a bunch of big stuff and then they can't do it just because it's just too much for them to take care of. Because a lot of the smaller towns and even Hendersonville 20 years ago was a solely nonprofit run program. And so it didn't have like city staff who were running the office like how we are a city staff now. So there's all kinds of different ways that they're operated. This has probably grown since I last had this slide, but they're all over the place. I'm sure most of Mast's locations probably have some affiliation with them. I remember years ago, I think it was the owner of Mast had spoken at the Main Street Conference about what they look for. So they've got a big, long history of it. These are the states in the cities in North Carolina. There's probably, like I said, a couple more because this was printed a few years ago. But they're all over the state. The four main areas and this is when I get into our committees, it kind of goes into this a little bit more. But all of the Main Street program, like the National Main Street program, is based off of these 4 points: the economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion. So on the bottom corner, that organization side of things, that's really like getting your house in order before you try to do anything else. And so that's where like the staffing comes into play, and then the city's municipal service districts, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and then the different ways to combine the partnerships and the organizations together, where that's not too much of a involvement. I mean, there's some recommendations and some work together with the board on that organization side of things, but that's probably the least amount that the board has to do much with, because it's a city-run program. There's HR and finance and all of that kind of built in there, which is helpful. The promotion side, right now, our promotion side is really on, the events that we do. But we also do, like the bears would be considered promotion. Just having things to promote the district out on the street, the branding that we did in Seventh Avenue, and just kind of the ongoing marketing. And all of this, just to add, like, doesn't necessarily have to be stuff that's done by this board and this organization. It might be something that our other groups are already working on, or other nonprofits in the city that are working on towards that. The design, it's the, the outside public space, historic preservation, and, Hendersonville is pretty well known for that, particularly on Main Street, is just creating that, atmosphere outdoors. And then economic vitality, and that's supporting the businesses, recruiting of businesses and types of businesses that we'd want to see in the district, and, supporting the entrepreneurs that we've got. These are like the 8, I think they call them the guiding principles of what the Main Street program is. I won't go into all them specifically, but it's just, kind of just to focus in on that there's a whole comprehensive approach of making sure that we're working on not just the design, but the businesses and the support for the businesses, as well as the promotion, and having that kind of holistic approach there. And then I had already mentioned the incremental, but that's a pretty important one, as well as the implementation oriented. Because we'll get into the work plan here in a little bit, which this year is where we're really starting to try to dive in on that a little bit more with the board. So I think we got some good progress there.
There's some fascinating parallels with Mass and
How it's set up.
so actually currently
Mhm.
over the course of a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, rolling out completely new operating systems for
Really?
every aspect of our business.
Oh, wow.
Everything from registers and card readers to buying and marketing and HR and like literally everything.
Wow.
We've got a whole new host of different platforms and networks that we're working with, but planning how to roll it out, when to roll it out,
Mhm.
what comes first, and like being thoughtful about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a lot. A lot of moving parts there. Yeah, and if everyone's not all bought into it, then especially with all of the individual stores, and that's the same, like, we're here, everything, like, not all of the downtown businesses may be bought into everything that we're doing, but with the board, what you'll kind of see is that, like, it is trying to focus in more on with those longer term, like, there might be short-term pains with the longer term
Yeah.
better result, like with parking and with Seventh Avenue, like, it's painful right now for what it's affecting for individuals, but it's an investment in that longer term strategic thought for it. As a part of the North Carolina Main Street program, this is just some of the other benefits that are provided there. They do different types of training. They've actually started doing more this year that they've gotten some grant money for destination businesses and for historic preservation projects to go into towns or go throughout the state and host different training sessions for that. They're also occasionally, depending on how the state budget comes out, there's sometimes grants that are specifically for building improvements and rehabilitation in Main Street communities. Sometime in more recent years, they've been for tier. So there's 3 tiers of counties that are 1, 2, 3, and I get those backwards. It's based off of wealth and poverty in the county. And so they've been for the 2 tiers that are lower than Henderson County. So we haven't been eligible to apply for some of them. But that always kind of changes with the state budget.
Didn't know about this, fun facts in the corner there about.
Oh, yeah, the gray mill.
I know, that's-
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you live there. Yeah, so that was one of our awards that we'd won in 2021 for the gray mill project.
Was it a partnership with a investor? And
Yeah, so the city had owned the Gray Mill property. And then, this was before I was here. And for years, they had been trying to figure out what to do with it. At one point, it was like a performance center or something they looked at. I think years ago, it was the library, like it actually was the library, I think. And then I'm not sure at what point the city obtained it. It's been the last 50 years or so. And then through the downtown department, they had been trying to find a location for a hotel. And they brought in, University of North Carolina has a thing called the Development Finance Institute, which does like cities pay them to come to evaluate locations for big development projects. They're working with them right now for the affordable housing plan. But anyway, they brought him in overall to identify locations for a downtown hotel.
Mhm.
And then the developer that they had was initially looking at the Gray Mill for a hotel project. But then the finances didn't work out for them to do that, but they were still interested in the building. And so then they had a partnership with the city where they purchased the property. And the city had received a community development block grant to go into, I think it was, $500,000 to go towards that project. And so it's privately owned now, but that was all worked out between the city and the developer. And that's also why how the CDBG funds was how the affordable housing or affordable units or workforce units were able or were required for there. Yeah, so that was a big
Yeah,
project and a huge one. Right whenever I started was right when it was opening up. So I wasn't a big part of it, but it's,
well, just like was it 2020?
yeah, it opened. I started in February 2020 and it opened like maybe a month or so before that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I moved in November 21.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's been a huge one and hopefully the city will be able to do some other affordable workforce housing projects similarly to that. Yeah, so we can submit these annually for different types of projects that we have going on. And then we also have a Main Street champion that we can submit every year to nominate from the city. And that's just a volunteer or community member who goes above and beyond to be recognized by the state. So every year, as I mentioned, the reporting. So there's two different sets of reporting that I've got to do the state every year. One is our statistics, which I'll show that here shortly. But then this is typically in December or January. There's a whole downtown assessment that we have to submit, and it's just been adjusted or changed last year to have these new standards that we have to report based on, and each standard has different things that I've got to say that we're doing or we're doing well in or we're doing okay in that kind of level of submission. So basically that broad-based commitment to revitalization, inclusive leadership and organizational capacity. They'll ask like, do we have people representing different communities, either on our board or committees? Diversified funding and sustainable program operations. They want to see that it's not just one source of income for the program. We're good there. When I used to work in Trine, and it was not good there because it was funded by a community foundation, and that was the one source, and it was not reliable. And not just to pay for staffing, but also to pay for the operations and the upkeep. Strategy driven programming. They want to see that we're looking at metrics to decide if things are being successful or not versus just like, yeah, we think it's okay. Preservation-based economic development. That's a big one because this came out of the historic preservation, the whole program. They really do get on us if any historic buildings have to come down or anything like that. or if they can't be preserved. That's an important part. And, you know, with new construction too, just fitting with, the historic districts, if we've got one, which Main Street has a historic district locally, which can enforce, which is what Sam does. Demonstrated impact and results. That's also kind of on that strategy driven programming. It's, the metrics to show like, the statistics we have to report new businesses, new or gained or lost employees, and also investment statistics. Some of the requirements, which we've been meeting annually, is, but we have to maintain and continue to do that, is having that board of directors that is diversified with stakeholders and community members. We have to have a full-time employee, or we've got 3. The defined transformation strategy. This is what we really went into at our last meeting, and I'll show you more on that here soon. That's our work plan. That kind of goes into that. I'll show you a little bit more on the budget here shortly. Support from the municipality. Hendersonville probably has some of the most support from the municipality compared to some other places. Yeah, so all of this I'll show here in a minute. This is just about the reporting. So this is the statistics that I report every year on. It's in July every year. I submit this to the state, and so these are cumulative, showing just what it's been since 2012. For most of them, some of them I couldn't find all of the information on. So it's pretty incredible, especially the public and private investment. You know, since 2012, there's been $36.5 million in private investment just in the Main Street and 7th Avenue districts. And then also $14 million in public investment. And like the public investment includes things like parking garage, street improvements, any type of made like this building. And then private investment includes any type of building rehab by private property, and it also includes property transfers too. Facade grants, that's a program that we do. We grant up to $6,000 for facade improvements for buildings. And then building rehab, that's not something that we do, but we try to support and encourage. The jobs lost and gained, this is one I'd kind of point out that some of those numbers are probably a little bit more of guesstimates based off of the buildings or businesses coming and going, just what we would anticipate their number of employees are.
What were the 2 new constructions?
I'm not sure what the one, oh, actually I do. In 2017-18, it was Triskelion Brewing. And then in 2022, it's the house that's over across the street from 3 Chopped.
Got it. Man, that is wild. There's just those 2 things.
Yeah, and that's just within the map, the Main Street area, wherever that map is. I'll show you. Yeah. Which will have another new construction. I don't know if Lyle's still. Probably not. Oh, maybe it is. Well, another new construction when he builds his, where the building had gotten torn down on 7th. So it's kind of neat to see all the changes that have happened in this past year, 23-24. Even though there were several businesses closed and jobs lost, some of that had to do with, like, we've got a lot of moving pieces on Main Street that are about to be open or have opened since July. Because all of the places that had emptied out are either already refilled, like Tipsy Taco in El Paso, down at the south end, So there's just a lot of moving around right at the time cutoff. Any questions on the reporting or statistics training? Okay, so kind of getting in on the rules of procedure and serving on public board. So a little bit of history on that. So before 2021, there was a Main Street district and a Seventh Avenue district, or we still have separate districts, but they each had their own advisory committee. And they only met, I think, 3 or 4 times a year. And then we still had the subcommittees that we currently have. But it was coming to where both Main Street and Seventh Avenue were talking about the same stuff. And so in 2021, we combined them. And then just did a little bit of updates in 2024, where we have 5 stakeholders that represent Seventh Avenue. And actually, I need to change this because what we revised in 2024 said that it, I think it says must be a business or a representative of a business, basically where it doesn't have to be the specific owner. I was like, the owner of Mass. So that's changed. I forgot to update this in the slide. So 5 for Seventh, 5 for Main Street, and 5 at large. And then we have 1 city council liaison who's a non-voting member. This next one has a list of everybody. Jeff Miller is our liaison right now, but he's just temporary because he's filling in or was short-term appointed for a council seat. And so right now in the election, there's 3 seats up for election, 2 incumbents up for re-election, and 1 vacancy that he's currently filling. So we'll have somebody new from city council at some point after the election. Whenever we changed all of the board rules and bylaws in 2021, that updated everyone's term. And so we've got some people who've been on for a really long time because it started everybody from the beginning. That's why like Caroline's still on and several of the other ones. So everyone get, all of the terms are 3-year terms and can serve up to 2 full terms. So people who served a partial one can then serve, like if they serve 2 years, they can serve 2 more full terms with that kind of during that changeover. So then come around April or May, we'll see if anyone would like to, if they would like to renew or not renew, or if there's anyone who decides that they need to step off and have the applications open then. We've been getting a lot more applications. The city overall has been pushing that a lot more, so we've gotten a lot. Then council appoints them. A couple rules that we have in the bylaws and rules of procedure. Members who miss more than 3 consecutive terms, that was a change too. May cease to be a board member. So if someone has a legitimate reason for missing 3, but we still feel like they're valuable to the board, they don't have to be removed. But we've had some people who just never come. And with so many people who are wanting to join the board, we want to make sure that we've got people who are contributing to it. Because these are a city board and they're all open meeting laws apply. So all of our meetings are open, all of our minutes are open to the public, and I record them. So all of our board meetings, the board meetings are recorded and put online, and then the committee meetings are recorded, but I don't put those online listed publicly. But if someone wanted to look at any of them, they could. It's all open information. So just something for kind of remind people if they're going down a rabbit hole of saying something in a meeting that it's recorded. They're held second Tuesday at 4 unless canceled. And we have, and we can schedule special called meetings. So if there's, like if typically that might happen if meetings have been canceled for a couple months and then some type of business comes up that's important, that's not on the regular schedule. And so then we'll do a special call meeting. And when it's a special call meeting, it can only be the topics that were advertised in the special call meeting. Otherwise, on the regular board meetings, the chair can add items to the agenda. Like if for the board meetings, they have a public comment section. We don't tend to have a lot for that unless we have a particular topic. Like last year, we had a parking meeting after we were about 3 or 4 months into the parking downtown, to have basically to get people to give their comments on record for it. This is just a little bit more about the state statute for public body. Basically, as being a part of a public body, any type of, like if you've got a side meeting with half of the board, which would be a quorum, that's considered a public meeting. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. Like no decisions should really be made outside of our public body. And when we meet for the downtown board, that's a little less applicable than like the planning board or ones that have more judicial type of functions. But it is something just to be conscious of. So next is our how our subcommittees and board and council just kind of all fit in together. So our board has 3 subcommittees, which I'll get into. And the subcommittees are basically where ideally that's where kind of getting more into the meat of what we're trying to work on, ideally to where they present back to the downtown board. So we're not getting into as many of the weeds on the downtown board meetings. Sometimes we still will, but we want the subcommittees to be able to get into the specifics. And so then when it comes to the downtown board, it's been kind of thoroughly reviewed. There will probably still be some things that might just come straight to the downtown board. Typically, some things like that are if there's any new events that are proposed that are downtown or changes to events, because it's good for us staff, especially to get that feedback from the board, downtown board on getting the event. Like we'll ask the event organizers to come if they're available and talk about what they're wanting to do. And a lot of times the downtown board will give them like, we really don't think you should close this road. Can you do it down at the visitor center or something like that? So that does come up usually a couple times a year.
Yeah, I saw that on the meeting right before I joined.
Yeah.
From June, I think.
Yeah.
Proposed.
Yeah, it was a church related thing. And like we try telling them, like when they come in as staff, like, would you consider just doing it on the plaza? And sometimes they'll push a little bit more on that. So then we'll have it say, well, okay, well, you'll need to come to the board to talk more on that. Because so internally, the city has a special events committee that all of the events every year have to submit an application and then we review it. But that's more or less like it's police, public works, fire, and us. And so it's more on like, are we all aware of all the logistics related to it? It's not as much of a like declining an event. I think we probably will be getting more into some event policy with the downtown board over the next year, just because it puts quite a bit of strain on Apple Festival, on like the public works and police and all that. So the new events will probably have some extra review on that. Sometimes also someone or something will go straight to city council. And then council might say, like push it back to the downtown board. This is just where the meeting calendar is online. It has all of the Zoom information for all of the meetings. And then this link has where all of the agenda packets and everything are. And so if you go to the Downtown Advisory Board, you'll see like the past meeting packets. And then these accidentally got deleted, so I've got to re-upload the video. But I've uploaded all the videos from the downtown board, unless every now and again we might have some technical issues where the video didn't work. This is meeting format. This is what we've got in the rules of procedure. And this is all kind of new for us too, is having the subcommittees report back, because it's been a lot of just me talking at them. So I'm trying to get away from that a little bit. So this is just the order of meetings. The chair can always change the order, or people can change the order of it in the approval of the agenda. We've got public comment before approval of the agenda, so that way if anyone comes to comment on something that they want to add that to the agenda, they can. That's more or less about the structure. So in our last meeting that you missed the fun activity of wordsmithing mission and vision statement, if you've ever been on a committee that's done that. So we did adopt our updated mission and vision statement because we hadn't done that since I've been here. And that's some of the requirements for our reporting. And since we're just on the tail end of our downtown plan and comp plan and everything, we wanted to get all of our ducks in a row. So mission statement, more or less, it's what we do is both the Friends of Downtown and the Downtown Advisory Board, because they basically work together. And I'll talk about the Friends here shortly. And then vision statement, this one is basically what informs the work plan and how we approach the items and prioritize items in our work plan. Sort of epicenter of activity and most meaningful destination for locals and visitors. It preserves our historic charm as the heart of cultural and community activities while featuring safe, accessible streets and trails that support thriving, authentic local businesses. More or less all of those things. And then, then the mission is basically specifically what the board and committees do, policies, investing in capital improvement, and placemaking to curate a quality experience. So MSD, this is what some people, even some businesses downtown don't know as much about the MSDs and what all that means. Were y'all in like a tax district? And where were you at?
Roanoke and Columbia.
So they both had them, probably. Maybe.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. So basically, in North Carolina, they're called municipal service districts. In some other places, they call them business improvement districts or bids. And so it's a tax on all of the properties that are within the blue and the red, above and beyond the city tax and county tax. So, so all the buildings and the business personal property within those districts pay this extra tax to receive services that go above and beyond other places in the city or typical city services. So like just something that comes up every so often is I'll get businesses that are like on Church Street or just outside of the district asking why they can't be on our website or something like that. And I'll have to explain that the properties that are within that district pay extra above and beyond to be able to receive those services. That's just one example of some times that come. Another thing that we'll probably be looking at is possibly expanding the district, which came up in the downtown plan, particularly in South, or being able to physically connect both of these. into one, and even kind of on these the side area and up north. There's a few different options that we're looking at there. This is a little bit of history of how the districts got established. So in Hendersonville, they established the Main Street District in 1975 and completed the streetscape, the curved streets, the first time in 77, which was pretty ahead of its time. Yeah, they had wanted to start improving downtown, and somehow there was a mayor's committee on downtown revitalization. And I'm not sure how they ended up going there, but they went to Grand Junction, Colorado, which has a curved street. And they came back and then drew out the street and I guess just started pouring concrete is what my understanding is. So that's how that came to be in the 70s. In 1998, Seventh Avenue, businesses came together and decided that they wanted to have they requested the self-imposed tax. In 98, in 2006, we added the block in between the courthouse and the TDA. Starting in 2008 until 2013, they redid the streetscape. So this was picture is the old version.
I can see it on.
Yeah. And then it was just basically had to redo a lot of underground stuff, redo a lot of the sidewalks. And that happened for a while before I was here. So up until 2011, there was an organization called Downtown Hendersonville Inc., DHI, which was, so the tax revenue from the MSD went from the city to the Downtown Hendersonville Inc., and they had a nonprofit and had an employee of the nonprofit. And then in 2011, they brought it in under city management instead of having its own nonprofit, and that nonprofit doesn't exist anymore. Up in 2000 till 2015, Seventh Avenue had their own separate nonprofit, and they had a part-time person who I think was their employee. And then they were brought into the city's management. And then in the recent past, in 2020, so from 2011 till 2020, Lou, my boss, was in my position. And then the development services director retired, and that's when our departments combined to planning and zoning and downtown combined to be community development department. So we've got downtown division and planning division as a part of that. In 2011 or 21, that was when we combined our boards. And then also in 2022, we were able to equalize the districts. So when Seventh Avenue had a lower rate and Main Street had a higher rate. And so we were just trying to get them to be the same rate. And it's 21 cents. And we also created the parking enterprise fund, which I won't get into much on that, but that's basically to pay for the debt on the parking garage. So Main Street, the tax rates for this fiscal year is 21 cents per $100. I think the city tax is somewhere around 50 something cents, and then the county tax is somewhere around 50 something cents. So that kind of gives you the idea of where this tax fits within all of that. For our revenue that we receive for the Main Street MSD budget, we receive about $300,000 in property tax, and then we receive 5% of the city's sales tax revenue, and then which is about $316,000, and then about $20,000 from permits and fees, so sidewalk dining permits and event fees. This last part is how our staff is split out. And so me, Terry, and Dakota are split. I think 10% of our salaries come out of the city's general fund, and then the rest is split proportionally to the Main Street and Seventh Avenue district. Some other departments get split a smaller portion. And then starting actually last year, we're working towards, bringing the downtown landscaping in-house. Because currently we pay, and we've paid for years, a contractor, Bruce. And he's ready to retire, and we're not going to be able to get a contractor at what we've been paying for Bruce, and so we're trying to bring that in-house. And so currently we have two, but by the end of this fiscal year, we'll probably have four. And his contract ends in June of next year. So we're trying to transition it so that way it's not like ruined when we take it over. For Seventh Avenue, it's the same tax rate, but because there's fewer properties and lower value of properties and not as many like multi-floor properties, Seventh has a much lower, a much smaller budget. $53,000 collected or projected to collect in property tax, 63 in sales tax, which is 1% of the revenue that the city gets. So the Seventh Avenue streetscape, it was funded not out of the Seventh Avenue district, but out of the city's general fund. So basically the city as a whole, not the city as a whole, but the city council had decided that the Seventh Avenue was worth the investment for like the $4 million that was invested into doing the updates in that district as a way to be a part of the whole downtown, but that does not come out of this. I think a small portion does. So this is kind of how it splits out as far as what the expenses more or less come to being. A large portion of the Seventh Avenue budget and goes towards that personnel and benefits. And actually for both of them, up until this past year, the orange side was much bigger than the blue side, but because this year has budgeted for increasing the personnel to do the landscaping, that personnel side is growing as a result of that. The operating contracted services currently for this year includes the landscaping contract for most of these are on Main Street, split between Main Street and Seventh Avenue to some proportion is an arborist that we pay or that we contract with. Christmas lights is when we contract out, and we contract out about $10,000 for after the Apple Festival to do pressure washing. And the landscaping also includes the hanging baskets. The debt service that's here on the Main Street budget, that is for the debt on this building, which I think is a 10-year note. These are a couple just of the recent things that we've had. I already mentioned about the landscaping folks coming in and the transition that we've got for there. So right now the fund balance of every year, the fund balance is basically like what we have left over for the budget. So then it goes into, for local government, it goes into what they call a fund balance, which is basically the savings account. And so there's legally a certain portion that we cannot go below in fund balances. I'm not sure. It's probably like, I don't know, 5 or 10% of something. It's a percentage of something. But because we've had some healthy years, we can borrow or use from the fund balance to plan for like upcoming years. Just like if you're like a business, we're hiring for staffing or staffing up to in like January or like May. Some other things that we've spent recently or worked on heavily recently, Seventh Avenue streetscape. Last year, which that contract is about to end, is we paid for Placer AI, which is a cell phone data. I think I talked to you some about that before. That's been a really helpful tool, but it was quite expensive. So it might be kind of an every couple of year thing that we use. Pedestrian wayfinding, we've just got those installed of the avenue signs that were updated on Main Street.
Those look great.
Yeah, it's taken me a while because it was a lot of money. So I want to make sure that they look good. And then the depot design is something that's kind of wanting to, kind of a longer term project is adding a cover at the depot. And we've got some designs for, but aren't ready to progress on that yet. Okay. So for the Friends of Downtown, that's our nonprofit arm. So basically all of our events funds go in and out of the Friends. So you'll hear us say stuff about the Friends, and that's what that is. The board of the Friends of Downtown are the chair and vice chair of the Downtown Advisory Board and a third at-large person, which right now is the past chair, which is Michelle Sparks. And then also the city finance director is the treasurer. The city manager is the secretary. And that's all of the Friends board. So the finance department at the city help us handle all of the bookkeeping for that. And then we have an accountant that does the 990 for it. So up until 2020, it was just Rhythm and Brews because it had alcohol sales. But then the city finance department was like, we really should just move it all of the fundraising events and activities shouldn't really be a city thing. And so that moving that into the nonprofit gives us more flexibility to spend from the nonprofit in ways that the city may or may not legally be able to do, like the facade grants and really the facade grants are the main one that the city has determined that the government itself can't do it, but because the Friends money is just money that's been raised from things like Rhythm and Brews, we've got pretty good coffer built up to where we can like increase the amount of facade grants. This next slide basically shows the current year's budget for the Friends. So it's split up into Farmers Market, Garden Jubilee, Rhythm and Brews, Barefoot and holiday events. And then general has just kind of all of our basic expenses. Plus that's where things like facade grants are budgeted out for. We're at a negative, partially because we've been cleaning up how this is operating and we have a couple of big expenses that fall in between like December and January. So kind of depending on when that expense is made, it kind of tweaks what our expenses are. But that the Friends have about $120,000 in the bank currently to go towards. Nothing currently except for this $30,000 in facade grants, but it may go to further activities. The 5406 grants to the city that's in there, that was we'd had a summer intern that couldn't be afforded from the city's MSC budget. So we had that, the Friends pay for the amount for the intern. So the Friends didn't have to do with payroll and all that kind of stuff. This goes into our committees a little bit on how the different funds more or less are sorted out. The events are basically completely from the Friends of Downtown, that's FODP. But then economic vitality and community character, some of those things are funded by city, like the landscaping, hanging baskets, all of that under community character would be MSD funds. Economic vitality, sod grants come from Friends. And then like the Placer AI and all that kind of stuff would come from the MSD. Staff roles, this is just kind of to have like, so everybody knows what me and Terry and Dakota all do. Recent projects, this is actually, I didn't realize it was already kind of included on that budget talk. In the past couple of years, just kind of highlighting under events. We took the farmers market started in 2020. Like it was supposed to start in May of 2020, but then it started in June because of COVID. Bear auction, it's been going on for 20 plus years, but we shifted to the virtual format in 2020, COVID. Garden Jubilee used to be operated by the TDA up until last year, where they gave us a grant to take it over. And with that, we said we could only really take it over if we've got the support to be able to contract with someone to help us with vendors, which is what the Apple Festival should do. Just as yeah, as a point to think about on that. And we found this person, Kim, and Dragonfly Marketing. They're out of Shelby. And it's well worth it, because we don't necessarily need to we don't need to do the events to pay for our own salaries, which is we're fortunate in. And so we don't need to make this huge amount of money off of these events. We kept Garden Jubilee because that's an important one for the downtown businesses, more so than a lot of other downtown events, that and the Apple Festival. And so it was at risk of being gone from Main Street. So that's why we took it over. We've also improved on the holiday events the last couple of years with some grant money from TDA. And then just kind of annual stuff that I work on is our map brochure and our website and business directory. We just consistently try to update that, and the inventory of downtown properties and businesses. And then also on this Dogwood Health or Opportunity Fund, we'd received a grant from the Dogwood Health Trust to create a loan fund. And so we received $400,000 from Dogwood Health Trust. $360,000 of that went into the loan program at Mountain BizWorks. And so they handle all of the loan inquiries, loan making. It's just leveraged against all of their other monies. But at the end of the 5-year investment, we'll receive that $360,000 plus interest back to determine if we'd like to continue on with a Mountain BizWorks partnership with this loan program or do something else. So we'll have about $400,000 that can further go towards other downtown loan opportunities, which is pretty cool. Then the remaining part of that has gone towards minority business outreach, having like a monthly meeting at Daddy D's where anyone's invited to come, but we kind of target it to minority owned businesses, just to really build a familiar face with like people who may be interested in having a business with the city, and loan opportunities and bank opportunities and all the different resources that are around Small Business Center. And then also technical assistance for businesses, which a lot of that was marketing support for businesses in 7th Avenue during the streetscape. So our subcommittees, getting close. So that's where we've got our economic vitality, community character, and events team. And these are kind of the main areas, what they work on. And this was kind of really cooled down in the last, or updated in the last month or two. These are the times that those committees meet. Basically, the economic vitality committee is focused on property issues and getting types of businesses in those properties, or getting like basically what goes on in a building from the facade inside. And then the community character is focusing on public space, particularly like public art. And they're also going to take in on a 7th Avenue grand opening celebration. And then the events team, currently it focuses on specifically the events that we do. So Rhythm and Brews, Bears, Farmers Market. This is where this is our work plan, and this was more or less, and it's not fully worked out because we've only had the committees meet talking about it in the last month or two. But it's based off of the mission and vision that we've adopted. And so this is the format that we've got to submit with the Main Street of how we're working on these particular focus areas as the Main Street approaches, how we have to report it. So some of this is stuff that the committees will be working on, and some of this is more kind of staff initiated, and I haven't gotten to this yet. Which was pretty good that we didn't have a board meeting today because I wasn't ready for it. Is breaking it up into, and some of it's because the committees haven't gotten it figured out yet either, is having some individual tasks. So we've got this as kind of the cover sheet for the work plan, and then there'll be further of like task assignment deadline type of thing. So this one is focused on that community character subcommittee. And then the next one is the economic vitality subcommittee. And last of God is just for how folks can get involved. So either joining the teams or subcommittees, and then also all of our events. We've got not too high of a percentage of board members who volunteer regularly at the events, which I know people who have businesses on Main Street, it's not so easy. Yeah, and so that's fully understood. And typically a lot of our at-large members are people who've joined, who might have started as volunteers or something as an event, or they start on the board and then become volunteers. That's basically all of our at-large members, or most of them are involved to some degree on the events. And so that's really what I've got for the orientation and stuff, but also in the book, I've got, these are the bylaws or rules of procedure. And in the pocket, it's got last year's annual report. That's really about it. So do you have any questions or anything?
I feel good. I would say.
Was this helpful?
Yes, I would
Okay.
say I might look glazed over. I used to do training for several years at Bass, for doing.
Yeah.
Throwing all of the HR and everything at them.
Yeah.
It's always just.
Yeah, I try not to make it too long. They used to do for the state Main Street program for new directors. Now they split it up into the 4 points that used to be, you'd have to go for 2 days straight. And they'd have this big book, and we'd bring board members too. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a long 2 days. Yeah, so I try to keep it to an hour. Do you have any questions on anything in particular?
I'm slated to start sitting in with the economic vitality. Is that correct?
Yes, if that works for you, I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
As I'd like to have your background.
Yeah, whatever you think
Yeah,
I'd be,
yeah.
best suited for.
Yeah, awesome. And right now, that committee is, that one's still kind of finding its way a little bit, and it's probably going to be doing quite a bit related to the design guidelines that were in the downtown master plan that got approved, but I'm not fully sure how the planning department's wanting to work with the subcommittee on that, and also vacant buildings. Some type of ordinance related to vacant buildings. So we've got vacant buildings on Main Street that I have plenty of people who are trying to go into buildings, but for one reason or another, it's not, they get to the property owner and then it's not working out.
Yeah.
Either that the rent's too high in addition to what the amount of work that's needed for the space. And so that's where that committee will kind of be focusing in on. And on the separate side of that, but related is how to approach, or what the approach is to talking with some of these building owners on like, why is it empty? Yeah. And have you thought that maybe nothing's working because of your rate or whatever? There's all kinds of different ways to think about the approach for it. And then, which I didn't even talk about today, was the historic tax credits for buildings, particularly on Main Street. And I've got I'm meeting with several of them in the State Historic Preservation Office next week, I think, because properties on Main Street, and it's really only worth it when it's big properties. But if they need, like the Jane Asher building, for example, or where Jane Asher's been gone for several years, 314 North Main. It, if they were to renovate it to historic standards, say it's $1 million renovation, as long as they follow the historic standards, they can get up to 35% tax credit that's like amortized off of their income. And so it's well worth it.
I know Mass
Big.
did that one.
Yeah, Mass is kind of like known for it. And so that's the other approach that we're starting to have on some of that. So I think that you'd be definitely a helpful one there, and also just kind of like the trends that you see, because Mass is such a good gauge of like, if y'all are doing well, then it might, like, we know people are coming.
Yeah.
If y'all are doing down, then it's probably because there's fewer people overall coming downtown kind of thing. Yeah, y'all are kind of if people are coming to downtown, they're more or less coming to Mass. And so that's a good gauge for all of that.
Y'all ever done like a laser tracker, like to see how many people are coming and going from certain intersections?
Yeah, we did that during COVID, and then that Placer software.
Oh, that is
pretty much shows that. And so I've been tracking all, like, but that's part of the reason why we got it this year in particular, was because I knew that parking was going to be a big, like, people would say that they're hurt specifically because of parking, and not to deny that I'm sure it's hurt some in different ways, but then I'd compared how our foot traffic is compared to, say, downtown Brevard. Or
so important. To have similar size comparisons. In different cities.
So Brevard.
Some of the factors like parking, and just look at the.
Like if Brevard is down in a similar percentage over last year to us, which it is, then like, I don't think parking is necessarily the cause. Or Biltmore Village was another one. The only one that we weren't comparable with as far as visitation was Chimney Rock, and they were like way higher, which they have horrible parking and it's paid there. That could have had something to do with a new cell phone tower or something too. There's a lot of different factors to that, but that's been helpful to, and it shows like what zip codes people are coming from. But now if we won't have this software, your store comparisons might be kind of how we tell on some of that, because it's probably pretty comparable. If I look at like a Placer report for here versus like the actual store or whatever, or Waynesville, probably a very good comparison to what here is.
Waynesville's so interesting. It's like, it's more of a funnel than here. This is, I'm trying to think of a acceptable comparison. If
People just drive through Waynesville, or
no, because there's nothing as close to it as Asheville is to here. Like it's on its own attraction. And our store there, it is great.
I could see that because there's really not much left. Oh, Mark's on now, not I thought it was Lyle still on here. Hey,
No,
Mark.
I'm still here. Hey,
I didn't
Jamie,
know you're here.
I've been here almost the whole time. That packet's probably the best one I've seen. So great job on that. That looks awesome.
I know, you've joined a couple of these.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to be refreshed, even though we've been at it for a little while, to get reminded of all the basics and the standards. It's always good. So the packet looks great though. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Any if we just got Oliver here with Mass, you got any words of wisdom you want to share?
Please.
Words of wisdom. Just get involved. Just be as involved as you possibly. Here, hold on a second. There we go. I can't see any of you guys. All I can see. Oh, there we go. Hey, what's up, man? How are you? I'm Mark with Black Bear Coffee Company.
I'm doing well. I'm Oliver. I'm the manager down at Mass. Excited to join the team here. I agree. This is very well put together. I was because of all of the big picture downtown planning meetings that were going on when I got appointed. There was
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right there.
delay in my proper orientation, but this makes me feel much better.
Yeah. Yeah, just try and get involved as much as you can and, encourage other shop owners to get involved and, if there's a problem that they have or um, a gripe, it's always great to kind of invite them to sit in and ask questions because it's kind of how I got involved with it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people think that, the downtown advisory board is this mafia that runs the downtown area. It's totally not. It's just people that want to get involved and try and help each other and bring good ideas to the table and try and move forward on things that are helpful for everybody. And if we could get more and more people involved, it would just make it great for the whole Main Street. Because if we're
Yeah.
all doing good, we're all doing good. And
Mhm.
that's basically all I can say. Just try and get people involved and welcome to the group.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
All
Bye.
right, see you later. Bye.